John Gotti didn't look like a man who was about to lose his freedom. He walked into court calm, dressed sharply, hair perfectly in place, moving with the kind of confidence most people only have when they already know the ending of the story. To everyone watching, it felt strange. This wasn't just another accusation. This wasn't gossip or rumor. The government had recordings. They had his voice. They had spent months listening to him speak behind closed doors. And yet, John Gotti didn't act like a man in trouble, because deep down, he believed something most people never dare to believe. He believed the system wouldn't touch him. By the early 1980s, John Gotti was already well known in New York. He wasn't the boss yet, but he was close enough to power that people paid attention when he entered a room. He carried himself like a leader, spoke with confidence, and never hid behind shadows the way others did. While many figures in organized crime preferred to stay invisible, Gotti did the opposite. He liked being seen. He liked being known. Law enforcement had noticed this a long time ago. For years, they watched him from a distance. They followed patterns. They gathered information. They waited for mistakes. But watching wasn't enough anymore. They needed something solid, something undeniable, something that couldn't be argued away in court. That's when they decided to listen. Listening devices were placed in locations where Gotti felt safe, places where conversations flowed freely, places where men believed their words would never leave the room. The idea was simple. Let him talk, let him be himself, let him say too much. And John Gotti did exactly that. He spoke openly, casually, without fear. His voice was recorded again and again, captured during conversations that investigators believed would finally give them the leverage they needed. Inside federal offices, confidence grew. This wasn't like past cases that relied on witnesses who could change their stories. This wasn't hearsay. This was audio. This was real. To the people building the case, it felt like the end of the road for John Gotti. But they misunderstood one important thing. John Gotti wasn't afraid of evidence. He was afraid of juries. Or rather, he believed he understood them better than anyone else. Gotti had spent years watching how cases fell apart. He had seen strong investigations collapse because of weak presentation, unconvincing witnesses, and jurors who simply didn't trust the story they were being told. To him, the courtroom wasn't about truth. It was about perception, about confidence, about who controlled the room, and John Gotti believed he did. When the trial finally began, there was a quiet expectation that this time would be different. The government had prepared carefully. They believed the recordings spoke for themselves. They believed the weight of the evidence would finally bring everything to an end. But once the case moved from files and transcripts into a courtroom, something changed. What sounded powerful in an office didn't feel as clear in front of a jury. The defense didn't need to erase the recordings. They didn't need to deny their existence. All they needed to do was make the story feel uncertain. And slowly, they did exactly that. Questions were raised, interpretations were challenged, meaning became unclear. The more the case went on, the less solid it felt. John Gotti sat there watching it unfold, calm as ever. He didn't interrupt. He didn't react. He didn't show fear. To him, this wasn't chaos. It was confirmation. Confirmation that the system worked the way he believed it did. When the verdict finally came back, the room froze. John Gotti was acquitted, not convicted, not partially guilty, not stuck in legal limbo. Free. The reaction was immediate. Shock spread through the courtroom. Outside, the media rushed to understand how a case built on recordings could fall apart. Inside law enforcement, frustration boiled over. Years of work had ended in nothing. And John Gotti? He smiled. He walked out the same way he walked in, calm, confident, untouched. But something deeper happened that day, something that mattered far more than the verdict itself. That win changed how John Gotti saw the world. Before, he believed he could beat the system. After that trial, he believed the system couldn't beat him. There's a difference. One belief makes you careful, the other makes you bold. Gotti became more visible after that case, more comfortable in public, more relaxed in the spotlight. He stopped worrying about whispers and wiretaps. If recordings couldn't take him down, what could? To him, this wasn't luck, it wasn't chance, it was proof. Proof that confidence mattered more than caution. Proof that presence mattered more than silence. Proof that fear belonged to other people. The media noticed the shift immediately. Headlines began to form around him. His style, his attitude, his courtroom appearances, all of it fed into a growing image. He wasn't just winning cases, he was performing. And the public watched closely. That's when the nickname began to stick. The Teflon Don. Nothing seemed to stick to him. Charges fell away. Accusations dissolved. Pressure slid off. And the more it happened, the more John Gotti leaned into it. He didn't hide from the attention, he embraced it. But confidence, when left unchecked, has a way of turning into blindness. Every system has a breaking point. And while John Gotti believed evidence was the greatest threat, the real danger was something else entirely. It wasn't hidden in walls or microphones, it wasn't written in reports, it was sitting beside him. The same confidence that protected him also made him careless. The same belief that freed him also made him trust too much. And slowly, without realizing it, John Gotti began to underestimate the one thing that could never be controlled forever: people. That trial didn't end John Gotti's story. It reshaped the way he saw the world. From that moment on, he didn't just believe he could survive the system, he believed he had figured it out. To him, the courtroom wasn't a place of danger anymore. It was a stage, and he had already learned how to perform on it. Walking free after that case didn't feel like luck. It felt earned. It felt inevitable. What John Gotti didn't realize was that the pressure never disappeared. It simply changed form. The people watching him stopped focusing on what he said and started paying closer attention to who was around him. The walls didn't matter anymore. The rooms didn't matter. What mattered were the conversations that happened when no one felt threatened. Gotti moved differently after that trial. He spoke more freely. He trusted more deeply. He assumed the people closest to him shared the same confidence he did. That assumption slowly became his weakest point. Confidence has a way of dulling caution, and caution is the one thing power can't afford to lose. The system learned from its failure. It understood that strength alone wouldn't break him. Time would. Familiarity would. Comfort would. And while Gotti believed he was finally safe, the ground beneath him was quietly shifting. Nothing ended that day in court. Something began. The belief that rules no longer applied settled into his thinking and stayed there. That belief followed him into every room, every meeting, every decision. It shaped the way he led, the way he trusted, and the way he underestimated the future. And when the system finally returned, it didn't need to listen anymore. It already knew where to look. The threat didn't come from the outside. It came from the space Gotti believed was untouchable. That is how John Gotti became untouchable, and how that belief slowly, quietly destroyed him.